All right, so today I want to continue our work with the 75 grain Hornady boat-tail hollow point with the can lure. This is our fourth or fifth video playing around with this bullet recently, and we've narrowed in on a really good load with Alliant AR comp. We're shooting 22.9 grains, and the best group in the last video was at a 2.25 1-inch overall length, which, you know, it's 2.250 more or less. So my original plan for this video was to try some additional charge weights at that overall length and see if that accuracy held together if we, took the velocity up a little bit and then maybe down a little bit, because we're really already about as high as I want to go. Our velocity in the last video with the load I just talked about was 2732. So if we took it up to hit 2,800 feet per second, I would really start worrying about it. We'd probably end up tearing up some brass. Man, it kind of just seems dumb because we've already done it with the 77 grain Sierra Match King in the Mark 262 series. So I'm just, not that enthusiastic about it. Now in the last video, I kind of got sidetracked a little bit worrying about concentricity because I was making this custom seating stem with JB Weld and wanted to make sure the bullets weren't getting seated crooked. So we were measuring runout and we ended up having like 3 4/1000ths of runout on some of our rounds, and kind of chased my tail there a little bit with that. And in the end, it really didn't matter on the range. Some of our best groups included some of the rounds with the worst runout. And the consensus down in the comments of that video seemed to be that I was just worrying about it too much. So that's another topic I was kind of hoping to test and monitor in today's video. And I want to do it by testing some different sizing dies. The first sizing die is a standard Lee full-length resizing die. All of these are going to be full-length dies. So I've got a Lee die. I've got a Redding die. This one is a small base. There you go, small base full-length die. And for this die, I have two different expanding and decapping assemblies. The first one is the standard one, which this upper part here is what sizes your neck. So this is the standard one you get with a standard Redding die. This one here has their carbide button on it. So this is actually a floating button, and I think the idea is that it can self-center, so it avoids things like run out. And the last die is this Mighty Armory die. This die is kind of freaking awesome. Extremely expensive. These are, let me check. Yeah, so this die is 120 bucks. That's a Hornady lock ring, so guess I could take it off. There you go. So yeah, extremely expensive sizing die. Sent to me by an extremely awesome viewer that goes by Lil Nubs. He sent the sizing die, plus this is their universal decapping die. Have a look at this decapping stem. Very strong, very nicely made. He even got me like a whole collection of different like size pins, and there's super duty ones, and it's ridiculous. But back to our sizing die, let me show you why it's so awesome. First of all, it's just beautiful machining work here. And if we pull out the decapper expander, I've actually got the, this little nub on the end instead of a decapping pin. But like you saw on the Lee die, that is our surface that sets our neck diameter. Now the Mighty Armory website claims concentricity of 5/10,000ths at the case mouth and shoulder radius. So it's supposed to be perfect. And if you look at the top of the stem there, you'll see it's got a taper there, and then of course a matching taper inside. So there's no wobbling around, free floating anything. Oh, another thing. I always end up doing that, taking crap apart and putting it back together 15 times. The inside of this die is polished like crazy, and it sizes very, very smoothly. So that's the third die. Now, a lot of people have found that if you remove your expander ball from a standard full-length die and instead use a separate expander like this one right here, so in a separate step, we use this in place of the expander ball in the sizing die. This can sometimes be a way to get rid of concentricity issues that come from the sizing process. Because I mean, that's really what we're talking about. If the neck of our case is not concentric with the outside of our case, that's going to show up as runout here. Or if maybe the die, the neck is a little janky and crooked, that's going to show up as runout. Oh, so one more piece of equipment here. This is a K&M expander. This is a little bit embarrassing because in just the last video, I was using a 21st Century expander, and I'm all like, yeah, I think K&M expanders have a cutout in the side so you can see through them. Well, as I'm editing that video, I'm like, yeah, they do, you frickin' moron, you own one. Yeah, right here. So this is the K&M expander that I mentioned in that 308 video from just a couple days ago. And as you can see, it's got that viewing window, which I think this is this is an optional riser. You can also just use it screwed directly into the press. Now, why did I forget that I had this expander? Because really it's part of my neck turning kit. So like my expanding stuff is 21st Century, but my neck turning kit is from K&M. See, this box is full of all sorts of cool stuff. But one step before you can do your neck turning, you have to expand the neck of the case with one of these mandrels. Now this is, I think it's 1,000th over, it's like probably 225-ish, or maybe 224. So can't use this one. It would give us no neck tension, or very little neck tension. But what I had bought recently and then forgotten about was this K&M mandrel, which is, it also says 22 cal, but it says -002. So I think this is a 222. Yep. So this one is an expander we can use to set our neck tension, just like with our 21st Century kit. Now these expanders, there I go again, put it back together and then remembered something I wanted to talk about. So these expanders are very, very close fit into this K&M body. And then it's just got this little screw to hold it in place. So to take a quick inventory of things I want to play with today, I want to use our 21st Century expander with a 222 expanding mandrel. I want to use the K&M also with a 222 expanding mandrel. I want to use our Mighty Armory sizing die, whose design, I mean, if you ask me, how is this not just as good as a separate expander? I'm thinking it might be, so definitely want to test that guy. I want to test the Lee die, because why not? We're testing all this expensive crap. Let's test something that's budget friendly. And if you're not familiar with the Lee dies, go ahead and pull this guy apart. You know what? That thing is on there tight, and I'm not going to mess with it. Because it's just a collet, so you've got, well, just like this spare decapping pin that I use to point at stuff sometimes. Same exact thing. It's a Lee decapping pin. It's just this one has got an expander. Crap. I'm going to go ahead and take it apart. There we go. Yeah, once it loosens up, this one's, there we go. That's what it looks like in there. This is an all one piece, and you'll see the worn spot there. That's the expander ball, basically. That's what's doing the work. While we've got it apart, let's see what this one measures. Saying 222 and a half, 222. So that's pretty standard. I mean, you'll notice both of the expanding mandrels I'm using today are 222. So 2/1000ths under bullet diameter seems to be the most common standard expander size. And then that leaves our redding die with our two different types. I think with the redding, I'm only going to shoot the floating carbide button, because that'll make 5 different configurations. Lee die with standard expander, redding with carbide, and then the Mighty Armory die. We'll do 10-shot groups with each of those. And then I'll load a 10-shot group where, you know, we might, yeah, I'll use the Mighty Armory die with the expanding assembly removed, and we'll use the 21st Century on 10 of them, and we'll use the K&M on 10 more. So 10-shot groups, that makes 50 shots. And we'll use our best load from the last video with this bullet of 2.251 overall length. Sound like fun? I'm pretty excited about this. Once we get done loading, we'll test our runout on everything and get some idea of, whether we see any difference. But the range test and comparing that will be fun. Now, in the last video, we were shooting new Lake City brass. So this is now once fired Lake City brass. I actually used my Mighty Armory decapping die to remove the primers. I tumbled them and then I annealed them using my salt bath annealing setup. And I think I'm finally ready to admit that I hate using that salt bath setup with 223. They're so short that it's hard not to burn yourself. And then if you put gloves on, well, the cases are so small that it's hard to get a hold of them. But I do feel like it works well. It's just a little bit annoying. It's so much easier with the big cases. Maybe it just annoyed me in particular this time because I was annealing 223 and 308 at the same time, and 308 had plenty of room to get a hold of the cases and didn't burn myself, and just much easier. So, all right, so that's the brass we're using. We got all the load data, right? I've told you 14 times. Is that our plan? I think that's our whole plan. I was reading the little sheet that came with the Mighty Armory die. It looks like they recommend lanolin lubes. So let's use lanolin. And it looks like for storage, I was surprised to see this. They say do not use aerosol lube products on Mighty Armory dies. So something like One Shot, which I actually have been using recently to just spray all over all sorts of crap, which is not what it's made for, Like, it's a sizing lube. I guess step one, I'm gonna need to find my lanolin lube. All right, I'm gonna spray those down. I'll see you at the sizing die. All right, this is probably gonna be a little bit annoying. Oh, I need to tighten this one. down a little bit more. All right, so this might be a little bit annoying. Going to be a lot of cranking and adjusting and switching dies. Hopefully it won't be too bad. Just starting off, screwing it down until definitely making good contact with the ram. And then tighten her down. So I've taken my headspace comparator and zeroed it out. So let's see if we can bump the shoulder 2 or 3/1000ths on these. Oh, first try. Close enough. 3.5 thousandths. Let's do another one. Double check it. This die does feel really nice. Nice smooth seating. Yeah, 3.5. Good enough. Or it might just be that it's been so long since I used lanolin lube that I forgot how awesome it was. It does make for pretty smooth seating. But cleaning this lanolin off once I'm done with the sizing step is going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt. If I was sizing them all the same, I'd put them in some soapy hot water and just clean it off. But since I've basically got 5 different batches of brass here, it might be just as fast to wipe them off by hand. Okay, retting die with the carbide expander. All right, set it up just about the same. I've noticed that with this floating expander, sometimes on the way up it takes a minute to get the thing to align and do its thing. Holy crap, too far. Yeah, it bumped it 9/1000ths. See how hard I was? I'm not that hard into that die. It's just cut kind of shallow, I guess, maybe. All right, let's see what that does. Yeah, there it is again. Easy way to screw up your case mouth. Yeah, I'm at like 5/1000ths. I think I'm just going to roll with that. Yeah, we'll just roll with that. Okay, that's the retting. And next is our Mighty Armory in its standard configuration. Be a little bit more conservative this time, just barely touching the shell holder. And right now I'm at 1/1000th of bump. There's a little bit more. And that's a little bit too far, but I think it's okay because it's kind of like the retting. So 4, I was seeing 4.5. Okay, so that's the 10 sized normally with the Mighty Armory. Now I'm going to pull out the expander assembly and go ahead and size these next 20. Double check, make sure that didn't do something weird to the headspace. I don't think it would have. Nope, no effect. Still about 4/1000ths of bump. Okay, last one. So I found out recently in one of the 308 videos, it's easiest to just raise an empty case and then look down through the top to set the height of the expander. I'm going to throw a little bit of Imperial sizing die wax on this dude. Not much. I got some lanolin down in the necks, so it shouldn't be a problem. All right, now 10 of them here. With the 21st Century die. All right, nice and easy. Kind of do a similar trick with the K&M. Doesn't show up very well on camera. There you go. So there's that. If I make sure the case mouth doesn't go past there, then it shouldn't go too far on the expander. So if I take an empty case, and then screw the riser on here a little bit. Guess I need a lock ring. Now this is not, I guess, really the way K&M tells you to do it. Let me show you in my kit. So their expanders are threaded at the tip, and you can adjust this to make sure that you never go too far. You know, you don't want your case mouth going all the way down the expander and then banging into that. So you set this depth so that this hits the bottom of the brass before the case mouth hits. I think that's kind of their intended way of doing things, which maybe I don't understand it properly, because that seems kind of goofy. What sort of damage would that screw do to the bottom of your brass or your, flash hole or something? Probably not much. In our case, we'll just use the riser and not worry about it. All right, let's see. There we go. Let me get you a better look at that. All right, 50 pieces sized and ready to go. I just need to keep track of which ones are which. These Frankfurt Arsenal trays have, a sticker there, and then also says Frankfurt on that end. I always start from this end. So like this is kind of my row one. See, if I'm using a block like this big old Lyman that doesn't really have anything, I actually just wrote it on there, start. So there's my row one. Okay, so my next step, like I mentioned, I need to get the lanolin off of these. So I'm gonna turn on a hockey game. I'm gonna get some alcohol and a rag, maybe some Q-tips to get down in the neck, and we'll see how the Blue Jackets do. So I'm happy to report that the Blue Jackets won in overtime. The game-winning goal was scored by this guy. And while all that was going on, I got all of the cases wiped down. I checked all of them to make sure they were under the max length, and they were. So I don't even need to trim. So deburred and chamfered the case mouth and went ahead and installed our CCI 41 primers. So everything's gone very smoothly. So I just need to dump my charges and we're ready to seat bullets. 22.9. Go. So I'm hoping bullet seating is going to be really easy because I've got, I had some cider ammo loaded up in my box, and I have one that is just about the perfect overall length. So we'll use this to set up the die. Screw the die body down until I feel it touch. Right about there. So that's the crimp in the die touching the case mouth, and I want to back off of that a little ways. We haven't really been crimping these bullets. You certainly can, like in the Mark 262 series with our 77 grain Match King. I generally crimp those because the Black Hills factory ammo has a crimp, and we were just trying to clone all of the details of the factory ammo. All right, there we go. So that seating stem's snug against the bullet. Let's see where that puts us. Felt nice. So measuring cartridge base to ogive, my target is 1.875. So I'm about 9.5 thousandths long. And if we measure total overall length, I'm currently at 2.258. So just about the same amount of difference. That might not have been enough change. Let's see. Nope, it's almost perfect. 1.875 is our target, so 3 more thousandths. Looks like we're perfect. Okay, 1.875, flip it around, total overall length, 2.251. Okay, that's the last of the Lee die. And now this is the first of the redding. I don't expect our die setting to need to change. And just by feel, that felt similar, and our number's perfect. Okay, this is the first of the Mighty Armory ones. No difference in feel there, and it didn't mess with our overall length. Okay, next is the 21st Century expander. Felt normal. Seating force felt about the same, and our overall length is perfect. And last here is the K&M expander. They all feel the same. And overall length is right on the money. All right, so my next step here is I'm going to pull out the Hornady Concentricity tool and spin every single one of these. All right, so I'm very surprised by these results. This is the average runout for each of the different configurations. I just took all of the individual runout numbers I got, added them up, divided by 10. The best was using the Mighty Armory die with the 21st Century expander. Second best was the Mighty Armory die with its own expander. Third was the Lee, not too far behind them. And then the Redding die and the K&M averaged 2.3. So these are the raw numbers I took. And these are all still in order, so I know exactly which ones they are. So here with the 21st Century expander, the first two were the only ones I felt compelled to write down 0 on. So let me show you those two. So that's row, yep, the first two in row 7. So it just goes in there like that, and we spin it around. And let me show you where I'm contacting the bullet right there. So if I spin this around, that's what we get. So let me line up the 0. There you go. So maybe 2 or 3 10,000ths. Something like that here for the first one. Here is the second one. Spinning, spinning, spinning. So that's what those look like. Not exactly 0, but less than half a thousandth. So I just rounded down to 0. So these were the first two I tested of the 21st Century brass. So I thought, man, these may never, like, man, all these might be perfect. But let's see, the 7th one I tested, so 21st Century. This one, I wrote down 4. Let's see what we got here. Move our 0 just to make it a little bit easier to see. Yeah, so that's actually about 3. So a little bit better than I had originally written down, but that was the worst one of that batch. Here's one I wrote down 4 with the K&M. Move our 0 there just for the heck of it. Yeah, so that one's right at 4. So now maybe the individual numbers will make more sense and paint a clearer picture. None of them were really swayed by any one, round that was particularly bad. They earned their average, basically, is what I'm saying, with, more or less consistently good results or more or less consistently poor results. I wouldn't say I'm surprised by the Redding. Remember, that's the floating carbide expander. I always wondered, how well something like that would actually work. And with the K&M expander, I'm not sure, like how do you even screw this up? Maybe if I didn't use the riser, maybe this additional segment just adds in some more slop. So maybe if I screwed it directly into the press like this and used it this way instead, the numbers would improve. I don't know. The Redding die, what if we put the standard expander in the Redding die? Would it have really good numbers like the Lee did? I don't know. I guess that's for next video. But now it's time to get out to the range, and man, This is going to be interesting. But then again, maybe it won't. Maybe like the last video where we found that the better runout numbers didn't necessarily lead to better groups on paper, but it wasn't quite a test like this where everything else is exactly the same. So all right, let's quit frickin' yapping. Let's get out on the range. So I've got overcast skies, complete calm, no wind, and temperatures are in the mid-50s. The perfect day to shoot. Got plenty of time, so I'm ready to settle in and shoot some good groups today. Our target is at 100 yards. This up here is the Shot Marker electronic target system. I'm going to go ahead and collect velocities today with the Lab Radar chronograph, but don't expect to see much difference. This rifle has an 18-inch White Oak Armament SPR barrel with a 1-in-7 twist and rifle length gas system. So what I'm going to do, if I can remember, I'm going to try and load my magazine backwards. So the first round off the magazine is the first on our runout list, you know, my record of the runout. So maybe if something weird happens, we can go back and see what its runout number was. So our first group is with the Lee die. Looks like a good start through the scope. Yeah, I can live with that. 0.83 inches. Velocities were a little bit hotter than I was expecting. Let's see what the average is. Yeah, average was 2794 with a 14.8 standard deviation. Last video it was 2732. So we'll see if that trend continues. So there really weren't any glaring flyers, right? I mean, just this guy here. Yeah, so the best 9 go into 0.61 inches. Very happy with that. All right, I'm going to give the gun a second to cool down. I'm going to need to force myself to do that, right? I get to shooting these 10-shot groups. I could easily get it overheated, so I'm going to take 10 minutes, maybe 15 between each group. All right, next is the Redding die. Man, that group started off so good. Yeah, 6, 7, and 8. Just screwed everything up, didn't it? Yeah, velocity was pretty close, 2791, and an SD of 9.5. That makes me really glad I didn't do the video I was first planning on, where I was going to go up in charge weights to see just how far we could push it. 2800 is enough for me. I guess we could check real quick and see, without all of these, what did it look like? Yeah, the 7 best went into 0.61, and that big pile there is 0.32 inches. That's clearly where it was wanting to go. Okay, next up is the Mighty Armory with its own expander. Well, this is confusing. Make sure I don't have a suppressor getting loose or something. Everything feels tight. Velocity number is pretty much exactly the same as the others. And 1.08 inches. Almost exactly like our last group. I'm trying to remember on the Lee, whenever I had the decapping and expanding rod out, trying to recall whether I measured the size of the expander ball. Could it be just small neck tension differences that account for this? I don't think it's barrel heat. Like, the barrel's not hot at all. I've been taking breaks. And before I started that first group, I had shot 5 shots, I believe, to check my zero and make sure shot marker was working. So the gun was warm before I started. I don't know. Intriguing results so far. Okay, next 2 groups are the ones we sized the brass with the Mighty Armory die. But first up here, we expanded with the 21st Century expanding mandrel. All right, that's not too bad. Man, drop those 2 out. Yeah, the other's into 0.67. Not too bad. Man, I just don't know what to make of this so far. Okay, last group is with the K&M expander. All right, 0.91 inch group. Velocity, standard deviation, all that crap, pretty much the same as the others. Man, I don't even know what to think about this right now. Let's get back to the bench. I think I know what happened, and I didn't realize it until I was editing the video. Have a look at this target. So what we've got here, the top row of dots, the top groups, are the first 5 shots we fired in each group. The bottom row of dots are the second 5 shots. Every single group, the second 5 is the bigger group, and it's pretty dramatic. So I can think of 2 causes. First, barrel heat, and I think that's what's going on. The second thing would be shooter fatigue. Like, I'm not used to shooting 10-shot groups. I almost always shoot 5-shot groups. So losing focus, losing form, all of that, it definitely might have been more prevalent in that 6th to the 10th shot for each group. I think most of it's barrel heat though. I think what happened that first group with the Lee die, just getting started, I'd only fired a couple warm-up shots, and the barrel was cool enough to make it all the way through the 10 shots and stack them all in there. But from that point forward, we really struggled on shots 6 through 10. What do you think? Does that sound reasonable? I mean, listen, regardless of the excuse, I mean, just looking at this target, that is a really good target. You know, the second group was our biggest with the Redding die. But if you look at all of the other groups, if you imagine just combining them into one big group, I don't think the whole group would be much bigger, if bigger at all. So like, we're looking at 1.2 or 1.3 inch 50-shot group loaded with frickin' 5 different sizing die setups. That is awesome. And to top it off, we're doing it with a budget-friendly bullet. Just awesome stuff. And can we just take a minute to appreciate the performance of the Lee dies in this video? I mean, not only the sizing die, I mean, we seeded all the bullets with a Lee die from that same kit that we modified with JB Weld. I just looked on Mid-South Shooter Supply. This die kit, yeah, this little Lee RGB kit is $20 and some change. If you get their bigger kit that includes the factory crimp die, and very importantly, it contains the shell holder. This kit does not come with the shell holder. The full kit with everything is only 30, 32 or something bucks. Now, one feature of the Lee die that I never mentioned is the, well, hold on. Yeah, here's one that's not on a die. So their lock rings have this big O-ring. And whenever you tighten these down, it's very squishy. You don't really truly lock it down on top of the press. It's sitting there floating on that O-ring a little bit. And I think the thought behind that is, that's a good way to have things align themselves and create straight ammo. And is there something to having a big, beefy decapping and expanding rod? Because the Lees have got some meat to them. And so much that if you look in the Lee die instructions, they tell you if you get a stuck case, all you do is loosen this up and I don't know, remove it or something, but you basically get it to where you can hit this with a hammer and you basically use this surface to drive the stuck case out of the die. Now, something like the Redding assembly, just, by the way it's designed, that's not really possible. But even if you could, like, I don't know if I'd want to go hitting that little guy with a hammer, So I'm just super happy we have Lee in the hobby. Keeping pressure on prices, if it wasn't for them, who knows what we'd be paying for crap. And just their general philosophy of, using strong materials or expensive materials where you need them, and then where you don't, cutting costs everywhere you can, except where you have to. So, just wanted to take a minute and have a little bit of a Lee appreciation moment. So, I guess the other really confusing thing is with the K&M. Why did we see that crazy run out? Here's the first reason maybe. Because I went on their website to check and see if there were any obvious instructions that I failed to follow. The first is they don't show the use of any lock ring. I guess this thing just, goes down in the press and sits there floating. So did having the lock ring on there maybe somehow get it a little bit out of whack? It's a possibility. Or is it just, a matter of, like I think I mentioned earlier, the stack tolerances here is the source of the problem, and maybe, just this guy in the die would do better. I'm not sure. We'll have to test it. So K&M expander, definitely need more testing with that. With the Redding die, where we got the poor numbers with the carbide floating expander, really want to see what their standard rigid expander would give us. Just out of curiosity. Because, assuming I'm right on my barrel heat theory, today's results are just further confirmation that it just really doesn't matter. But it's got to matter. It has to. Whether or not it shows up in a 50 round range test or not, over time, loading your ammo straighter and adopting practices that seem to lead to less run out, that's got to be the right thing to do, right? That's better ammo. I put a warning at the beginning of the video about this 22.9 grain charge weight. We got to back this off. We're flirting with 2,800 feet per second and didn't really see any pressure related issues with the brass or anything like that. But I'll just feel better. Maybe we back it down. Maybe we go to 22.5 and see what that gets us. So I think that's where we leave this one. I'm not sure what's next here with the 75. Might be time to move on to a different powder. I don't want to plan too much in case some of you guys come up with some good theories down in the comments to explain today's results. Well, I appreciate you guys watching. See you next time.